Creating system dynamics simulations takes a good understanding of the systems that influence our past, present, and future realities. You may only have these types of simulations once or twice a semester, creating situations for students to explore how people and things interact within their social, political, economic, and natural environments. To help you create these simulations, I've compiled about 7 steps from my own experiences, as well as those of my colleagues, to help you work your way through this process. Granted, these steps are absolutely iterative, and we need to make sure that, although I'm going to enumerate them in 7 different steps, understand that you're going to have to come back every once in a while to repeat steps and to refine steps. So let's get started. The first step is to identify an appropriate situation that changes as part of a variable. In other words, we have to have a situation depending on some larger systemic change that actually impacts an outcome. A way that I graphically draw this is if I have a situation that goes through kind of a phase shift that actually becomes almost a new situation. So let's say, plenty of rain in the Nile Valley to a drought condition. That actually has an impact when we talk about crops, and this one's negative and this is a positive impact. So some systemic change like weather impacting the outcome of an event. Along with that, we need to develop a theory of change. And express this graphically. For your own purposes, I draw a graphic organizer helping you to visualize the causes and effects of different system inputs or variables on the people, things, and activities that you're studying. This visual will help you develop the parameters of the game and enable you to create varying situations that demonstrate the main concepts of the activity. So if we talked about the Nile River, maybe we have the pharaoh and his rise to power if it rains because of new crops. But if there's a drought, he actually begins to lose power until at some point a new pharaoh arises claiming that he can bring rain, or something of that sort. This is actually a dynastic cycle thing that happened in ancient China. Not so appropriate for ancient Egypt, but you get the idea. Developing a theory of change. Once we have our theory of change, and once we understand how the system affects the outcomes, we need to start identifying historic, current, and imaginary roles for our students. The whole point is for students to interact within our system. Whether you assign students roles such as, let's say, a sun, a moon, the tide, all of these, these roles will help students identify within the system and act within the system. So whether it's historical figures vying for literary patron support, or one of these elements, or any of these various ways that students can play within the system, that's going to have the learning impact. Our fourth step is to actually figure out how students will interact with the part. And within the system itself. Who will move where? Who makes decisions? How long do they have to make the decisions? On what are those decisions based? How many cycles will students go through? This usually coincides with how many variables you have. Mapping out what you would see in a perfect classroom will help you make the rules. Don't forget to come up here to your theory of change to help make sure that what you're imagining students will do actually works within your theory. The fifth step is to develop artifacts that represent materials manipulated by the variables. Whenever students get to see something increase or decrease in really tangible ways, their understanding will improve. So if we go back to our theory of change and we see that the Pharaoh's rise to power because of the rain was actually units of grain, or he would lose units of grain in a drought condition, students can really tangibly see that because they're actually seeing the grain move from person to person. Our sixth step is to actually create 3 project outlines. The first one goes to the students. And this is going to explain a couple of things, but among them, what's going on, what rules there are, how the game's being played, and the purpose of the game. The second one, I actually recommend goes to the parents. And this is going to be really similar to the students. But what you're adding here is 2 things. One, why simulations are important. And 2, what they can do at home to support learning, that their students learning. A lot of times parents are going to get their children coming home and your student's going to look at his parents and say, oh, we played a game today. And the parent's going to really wonder what's going on. But understanding why simulations are important, what actually happened, the purpose is really important here, as well as the rules, and then what they can do at home to support that learning draws the parents in to really understanding that play is important and the play that's done in school has a really specific purpose. The last one that I would send is to your administrator, and I'd actually make that both what you're sending to students and what you're sending to parents, so that your administration knows both what's going on and what's going on in your class. The 7th step is certainly not the least important, but it's something that a lot of teachers I find forget, and that's measuring student learning. Doing simulations is hard, and it takes a lot of time. And a lot of teachers get so caught up, understandably so, in getting the entire simulation going within their class and taking that entire time that they forget to think about how to measure student learning, whether this be homework or an exit ticket or even coming back to it the next day. Having students really debrief, reflect, and understand what they learned by playing is really important. Most important to all of this is that you have fun creating the assignment and the students have fun doing it as well. Play should be as much a part of this experience as learning the concept. Indeed, play enhances our learning.